Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander Score Studio. Welcome to the show. So on today's episode, I've got a weird but awesome and amazing commander for you. It's kind of foolish to be in love with this commander, but that's kind of all that this commander is about. So let's jump into it. So Flubs the Fool is the commander I'm talking about on this episode, and yeah, this is a commander that I absolutely love. The design is just, it's really cool. A 0/5 Frog Scout for 3 mana in Teamer. You play an additional land on each of your turns. Whenever you play a land or cast a spell, draw a card if you have no cards in hand. Otherwise, discard a card. So this commander has like giant upside and giant downside at the same time. It is like a paradox because you are, well, getting extra value from it already by being able to play extra lands, which is lovely. And whenever you're playing lands, you get to draw cards. Unless, well, you have a hand. Then in that case, you're being foolish and you need to discard cards. Same thing when you're casting spells. You need to discard cards if you have any hand left. So it's actually better to be foolish, better to know absolutely nothing by having no hand, because then you're going to be drawing more cards. So basically, you want to play the entire game without a hand when possible, and then all of a sudden build into a hand, well, as you can. So you need like hand manipulation, and I think that is so cool. Being able to just play foolish, play without a brain basically, and say, you know what, it's going to work out. I mean, there's definitely some really cool plans that you can make work with this kind of a commander. Some really cool and powerful things that you can do with it. Absolutely. Do not underestimate this one, but being able to play without a hand is just so freeing. And then being able to build up an absurd amount of value and then win the game too. Yes, you can definitely win the game with this commander. It's a very exciting one. Let's jump into this budget build. $19.60 right now. Now keep in mind that is just including the 99 of the deck, okay? And also not including basics, but you already have those. Regardless, Flubs the Fool itself does not have a price on it yet, though it will be getting one shortly, I am sure. It just came out, so we shall see. Regardless, with all that said, if you are interested in this deck, make sure you check out that deck list link in the description below. Now, with all that said, let's jump into it. Now, the first tactic I'm calling Outlet Mall, and we are going to be utilizing discard cards that allow us to freely discard our cards in our hand to ensure that we, well, don't have a hand when we don't want a hand, because if we just want to draw into more cards, all we need to do are play lands and cast spells, as long as we don't have a hand. So Aquamoeba might seem like a weird include, but anything that basically lets us freely discard a card can be amazing. So yeah, discard a card, switch its power and toughness until end of turn. It doesn't really matter what that ability is. It doesn't matter what the benefit of it is. The fact is, if we have like 2 cards in our hand and we don't care about them, we'd rather just discard those cards and be able to, again, draw a card when we play that land, or discard one of them and cast the other one so we can draw a card. Next up, Ghostly Pilferer. This one can actually come in really handy throughout the game for us. Whenever it comes untapped, you may pay 2 if you do draw a card, so that's nice. Whenever an opponent casts a spell from anywhere other than their hand, draw a card. That's becoming more and more relevant lately. I mean, more impulse draw from players, more casting from graveyards. That being said, discard a card can't be blocked this turn, so that's quite nice right there. Again, even if you can discard multiple to that, it doesn't matter. Sure, it applies the same, right? It can just not be blocked that turn. Being able to just discard freely is huge. Noose Constrictor, this one can help as well. A 2/2 with Reach. Discard a card ++1 until end of turn. This can be a great blocker for us. A good attacker as well, too. But yeah, with that Reach, being able to stay back and be like, I can block most things. And if you swing into me, I'm willing to obviously discard my entire hand to just take out whatever you are swinging at me with. Next up, Wild Mongrel, somewhat similar. Discard a card. ++1 becomes a color of your choice till end of turn. The color doesn't really matter too much for this deck's purposes. I mean, I guess if someone has, like, you know, protection from a certain color, sure. Regardless, just being able to pump this, freely discard, nice. Cephalid Ink Shroud, or discard a card. It gains Shroud until end of turn. Yeah, being able to protect it from things is nice. I mean, not that opponents might be trying to take it out. Maybe they will once they see our engine going, obviously, but being able to protect it can be very good for us. Next up, Patrick Gnome. Speaking of protection, discard a card, regenerate it. Yet another way to keep this in play. A discard outlet is huge for us. Being able to keep it in play is great. Aeromoeba, discard a card, switch its power and toughness on turn. Basically the exact same thing as Aquamoeba, but in the air. So there you go. Then there's Thalicos Drifters. Choose and discard a card, gains Shadow until end of turn, which basically means it's unblockable unless our opponent has to have a Shadow creature too, then sure. But, you know, otherwise, it's unblockable. That's quite nice. Prognostic Sphinx, finally. Discard a card, it gains hexproof until end of turn, tap it, so I wait to protect it. And then whenever it attacks, we scry 3, so some extra value for us there. Scrying can be great to know what's going to be on top, obviously, because we're going to be drawing quite a bit with this deck. Again, discarding our hand, churning and burning through our deck can be really good once you're set up with this. Moving on to tactic number 2, though, the golden pick of this deck, the number 1 card out of 99, and that is Containment Construct. A 2/1 construct for 2 mana that says whenever you discard a card, you may exile that card from your graveyard. If you do, you may play that card this turn. So being able to essentially say, you know what? Okay, I've got these discard outlets in play. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get rid of my hand and just be the fool, right? That's exactly what I want to do. But it's not foolish because essentially you're turning those cards in your hand into impulse draw in a way, being able to use those cards still and also have that no hand requirement to get that value from your commander, to be able to actually utilize those cards. Again, like, you can play them from exile still, so you can play those lands. Additional lands are great with this commander. Be able to draw extra cards, discard those too, use them still. So yeah, this card makes it so that that loss of your hand is not really a loss at all. A fantastic card in this deck, and in my opinion, worthy of the title of Golden Pig. Next up, tactic number 3, Value Town. Now, there are a lot of high value cards that we can utilize with this commander. Again, we're utilizing a very, very awkward kind of synergy with this commander that most decks don't utilize. Most decks don't want to lose their hand. We do. And by losing our hand, well, we can take advantage of that with a card like Bag of Holding. Whenever you discard a card, exile a card from your graveyard. You can also pay 2 to tap and loot, which is nice. Also, though, pay 4, tap, sacrifice, return all cards exile with it to their owner's hand. So essentially, we can just discard our hand. Again, utilize the no hand value from our commander by playing lands, casting spells, and then later, we can just save up all those cards and utilize this to sacrifice it, get all those cards back to our hand, essentially, and yeah, we've got some really cool effects that we can really utilize with this. Again, just basically just store that up and then utilize all those cards when you need to. Conspiracy Theorist, another great card for this deck. Whenever it attacks, you may pay 1 to discard a card if you do draw a card, so a nice rummaging effect if we want to do that. That being said, more importantly, whenever you discard 1 or more non-land cards, you may exile 1 of them from your graveyard. If you do, you may cast it this turn. Again, if you are discarding cards 1 at a time, which we will be with our discard outlets, we get every single one of those, kind of like a containment construct, essentially. Next up, Case of the Crimson Pulse. When this enters the battlefield, discard a card, then draw 2 cards, so some nice additional card advantage there. To solve, you have no cards in hand. Again, we're going to get there plenty of times with this deck. At the beginning of your upkeep, discard your hand, then draw 2 cards. So being able to say, you know what, at our upkeep, we get an extra 2 cards. Absolutely. That's completely fine that we don't have a hand because, again, we're not really planning on having a hand anyways. Next up, Phial of Gladriel. Actually, some ramp that can really help us out too. Ledger Artifact for 3. If you would draw a card while you have no cards in hand, draw 2 cards instead. So yeah, we're planning on not having a hand. So being able to just get that, extra card for basically free is lovely. It also taps for 1 mana color and sure, doubles up life, gain at the lowest as well. That's fine. Abundance is another card that can really help us out though too. If you would draw a card, you may instead choose land or non-land. Reveal cards to the top of your library, so you reveal the chosen kind, essentially. That goes in your hand. The rest go on the bottom of your library in any order. So being able to essentially say, you know what, this time I want to land. Again, when you have that kind of a commander that can give you the ability to play initial land, you might as well play it, especially when that commander's like, oh, by the way, when you play a land, you're drawing a card if you've got no cards in hand. So being able to just choose land when you want land, choose non-land when you want non-land, it is absolutely perfect for you and can be an amazing engine once you get things going. Curator Mysteries. Whenever you cycle or discard another card, scry 1. Yeah, you can see why this would be really good for this kind of a deck. Again, every single time you are discarding those cards out of your hand to ensure that you are selecting that hand size to be 0, essentially, you are able to then curate the top of your list, top of that library, to ensure that you're going to be drawing into the right cards that you want. Next up, Seer Sundial. You can really take advantage further of playing those lands as well. Landers, Battlefield Control, you may pay 2 if you do draw a card. Going to be worth it. And again, you're going to have a lot of mana to work with a commander that lets you play additional lands. Song of Creation. My goodness, this is absurd. Enchantment for 4 mana in Teamer. We play additional land each of your turn, so that's another land we can play. Oh my goodness. We're cast a spell, draw 2 cards. Yeah. At the beginning of your end step, discard your hand. Again, we're okay with playing without a hand. That's exactly what we want to do with this deck. So being able to say, you know what, all of a sudden we are playing 3 lands in a turn instead of 2, which is already amazing. Also, every single time we cast a single spell, we are drawing now, when we have no hand, 3 additional cards thanks to our commander. Yeah, it can really help us out. Speaking of help us out though, Future Sight. My goodness, the value this can have. Play the top card of your library revealed. You may play the top card of your library. Again, having no hand, that's fine. The top of our library is basically our hand, so we know what we're going to be drawing into, and also we can play things off the top of our library, including lands, so keep that in mind. Speaking of lands, Tatiova, yeah, she is amazing. Whenever a land enters battlefield under your control, you gain life and draw a card. This is huge. This is absolutely massive. I mean, the gain 1 life is nice. Sure, that is nice, and I guess could work with File of Galadriel too. Anyways, what matters here is every single time you play a land, you are drawing additional cards. So your commander's drawing you cards too when you have no hand, when you're playing lands. This one just on top of that, letting you draw extra cards. The amount of value you can get from just playing a single land once you're set up properly is absurd. All-Seeing Arbiter, speaking of value, enters battlefield or attacks, draw 2, discard a card. On top of that, whenever you discard a card, target creature your opponent controls gets -X/-0 until your next turn. We're actually a number of different mana values among cards in your graveyard. We've got plenty of different mana values, and again, we're going to be discarding a lot of cards throughout the game. So this is basically a way to say, you know what, let's take that creature out of the equation, that creature out of the equation, that creature out of the equation. The amount of cards we can draw, the amount of cards we can discard in a single turn is absurd. So you again can just say, you know what, those creatures don't matter. On top of the additional card advantage you're getting from this one. Moving on to tactic number 4, Impulsive. Yeah, Impulse Draw can really help us out as well. Again, being able to play without having a hand, we can get around that in certain ways. Again, Future Sight playing up the top of our library, just drawing a ton of cards by doing things, obviously, again. And then being able to Impulse Draw, playing things from exile, that can be huge. Commune with Lava, X, red, instant. Exile the top X card your library until the end of your next turn. You might play those cards. Being able to play those cards, again, from exile is huge. Basically a mass, temporary draw spell for us that doesn't impact our commander. Again, doesn't say, you know what, we got to get rid of those. We have to discard them. No. We actually get to keep them out there and then utilize them still, while also utilizing our commander's ability to just draw us an absurd amount of cards. Next up, Eruth, Tormented Prophet. This is a crazy good effect with our commander. If you would draw a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library, instead you may play those cards this turn. Yeah, basically turning every single one of our draws into double Impulse Draw. That is huge. Our commander, again, is going to be able to draw us even more. Going to be able to allow us to keep, having no hand, essentially. Absolutely amazing how deep we can dig into our deck and the value we can have with that. Faldorn, Dreadwolf Herald. If you cast a spell from exile, land enters battlefield under your control from exile, you make a 2/2 wolf. This can go wide so quickly when we're set up properly. Also pay 1, tap, discard a card, exile top card of your library, play it this turn. Being able to also generate some extra value from this, being able to discard cards when we need to as well. Next up, Ignite the Future. Exile top 3 cards of your library, basically Impulse Draw, play until next turn. But if you cast it from your graveyard, essentially, cast them for free. So that flashback can be great for us. And again, keep in mind with that flashback, being able to just discard this card, it's not really that much of a downside because now we can actually just cast it out of our graveyard and it not affect our hand. Outpost Siege, another way to not affect our hand throughout the game. Enters the battlefield, choose Khans or Dragons. For this example, choose Khans. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. Until end of turn, you may play that card. Impulse Draw. Every single turn, Impulse Draw. So much value to be had for us. Next up, Escape to the Wilds. Exile the top 5 cards of your library. You may play those cards the next turn. Impulse Draw 5, basically. You may play additional land this turn. Extra lands, yeah, we're not going to complain about that at all. Being able to get extra lands into play. Again, the amount of mana we're going to have is just crazy. And again, getting 5 extra cards, basically like a mini hand to work with, essentially, can be absolutely amazing. That doesn't affect our actual hand size. Inspired Tinkering, another great way to get a lot of value. Impulse Draw 3, essentially. Create 3 treasure tokens as well. So some extra value when it comes to temporary mana and also temporary card advantage for us. Next up, we've got Land a Hand. Yeah, we've got extra ways to get more lands into play because, well, lands equal value for us for a lot of different reasons. I mean, yeah, just having a lot of mana can be a great thing. Of course, Sky Shroud Ranger. Tap, choose a card, a land card in your hand, put into play. Yeah, basically, just put a land from your hand into play. Again, just being able to tap this as a 1-mana creature to do so, that's amazing. Again, instead of discarding that land, maybe for no value with like an Aquamoeba, essentially, we can just basically now get that extra land into play without having to discard it, which can be incredible. So again, after we played our 2 lands for the turn, again, thanks to our regular land drop plus our commander, we can actually get a 3rd one into play. And again, just steal steamroll our opponents in value. Paducah Garden helps out in multiple ways. Again, tap, put a land for hand into play. If we've got 10 or more lands, we flip it, and then it flips over, and all of a sudden we can just get a ton of value out of it. Again, getting a lot of giant elementals into play. Next up, Explore. Pledge to land this turn, draw a card. Again, that is play, so essentially, yeah, we can actually get extra value out of that thanks to our commander. Land of our Scout, again, tap put a land for a hand into play. Scout Obus, exact same thing. Summer Bloom, play 3 additional lands this turn. Again, that is basically play 3 additional lands and also draw 3 cards. Now, you do need to like space out what you're doing though. You're going to play, maybe cast a spell that we draw. Okay, draw, discard things. You need to make sure that you're maintaining your hand size, obviously, but still, being able to get 3 extra is absurd. During Discovery, get 2 extra essentially, or you could actually search life for 2 basics as well and get them in your hand, or you can do both if you entwine it. Kellen, Inquisitive Prodigy. Investigate and plan to land this turn for the adventure side of that. Also, Flying Vigilance. Whenever attacks throw to 1 target artifact. If you control that permanent, draw a card. Being able to destroy artifacts with this can be quite nice as well. Perennial Behemoth can be absolutely amazing. You may play land cards from your graveyard. Yeah, that's absolutely huge. First off, I mean, again, with this kind of a commander, being able to play additional lands, that is massive. Keep in mind, also, we do have some fetch lands in this deck, like Evolving Wilds, Timber Defense, those kind of fetch lands, essentially. Being able to utilize them again and again and again and again and again, that can be absolutely massive, on top of all the lands that we're going to be utilizing from the ones that we discard that we aren't going to be able to play. Next up, tactic number 6, land a blow. Lands can also help us out, of course, with landfall, obviously. So being able to get a lot of value, again, from all those different ways we just talked about getting lands into play. Some more we'll talk about here in a little bit. Being able to get extra lands into play with our commander, and all the other ways that we've talked about so far, Song of Creation, etc. Yeah, we can get a lot of value out of things like Tireless Tracker. Whenever you have a land come into play, cool, make a clue. Awesome. Whenever you sacrifice a clue, you get a counter on it too. So this can be a heavy hitter for us on top of a way to just store up a lot of potential card draw when we need it with those clues. So yeah, even if we don't have a hand, we might have like 10 clues in play, and we've got a lot of mana to work with. Next up, Nesting Dragon. Whenever land is battlefield under your control, you make a 0/2 egg. When it dies, you make a 2/2 that has fire breathing. So, and flying as well, which is quite lovely. So yes, being able to make a lot of creature tokens very quickly with this deck can be a great thing. Speaking of which, Spore Mound. Basically exact same thing, except instead of making dragon eggs and dragons, it makes 1/1 saplings, which again can add up a lot throughout the game for us. Geode Rager, you know what? Our opponent's creatures can actually do the work for us, though. Land enters battlefield under control, goad each creature target player controls. That is huge. That is massive. That is, you send your army elsewhere, you send your army elsewhere, because again, we can play 2 lands in a turn thanks to our commander, plus all the other ramp sources we have. Yeah, a lot of the time we're just gonna be like, all 3 of you, swing at each other. Have fun. So yeah, being able to have your opponents do the dirty work for you can be great. Phylath Ward Sculptor, another great one as well. Enters battlefield, create a 0/1 green plant creature token for each basic land you control. That can be a ton for us. Whenever a land is battlefield control, you get 4 counters on target plant you control. We can make some really heavy hitters with this. And then finally, speaking of heavy hitters, Rampaging Bailouts, yes please. Trample, whenever a land is battlefield control, you may create a 4/4 green beast creature token. Yeah, it's going to happen a lot throughout the game. Again, make a massive army in absolutely no time. This commander absolutely can take over the game once you're set up properly. Moving on, though, to tactic number 7, other avenues. Let's talk about other avenues to victory. We've got Drake Haven. This one can help us make creature tokens, but in a different way. Enchantment for 3 mana in blue. Whenever you cycle or discard a card, you may pay 1. If you do, create a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying. Again, we've got so many free discard outlets that we can just get a lot of value from. Be able to discard those not only to just maintain our hand size, but also now to say, okay, I discard. Pay 1, make a 2/2 flyer. Yeah, that's worth it. Again, especially since we've got so much value, so much mana to work with this deck, we can really take over the game in absolutely no time with our flying army. Or, yeah, we can just decimate our opponents with Psychosis Crawler. Power toughness, each equal to the number of cards in your hand. Whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses 1 life. That is massive. That is huge. That is amazing. We are going to be draining our opponents in absolutely no time with this again. Just cycling through our hand, essentially. Being able to just draw more cards in a turn. Absolutely incredible once you're set up properly. Next up, though, tactic number 8, Fooled You. Let's talk about some ways to, well, make our opponents the fool by decimating them and their strategies. Devil's Play, a great way to do so. X and a red sorcery, X damage to any target. You can also flash it back, though. So this can be a card that we are completely fine with discarding. Yeah, it might cost a little bit more from our graveyard, but we don't care. We've got so much mana to work with, it does not matter. So being able to just discard that and be fine with it, that's great. Or you can utilize it twice for 2 targets. That's going to be a great finisher, a great way to remove pretty much anything. Speaking of removing things though, Earthquake. X damage each creature without flying in each player. Yeah, this will take our commander out as well, most likely, depending on how much damage we need to dish out. We might be able to keep it in play though, that's fine. But if not, yeah, we're going to have the mana to be able to replay it. That being said, yeah, this can be a great way to take out everything and yeah, to take out some opponents potentially, or just take everyone down to a low life total. Jaya's Immolating Inferno. Take down just your opponents, or a lot of things. Legendary Sorcery for X red. Deals X damage each of the 3 targets. Essentially, you know what? Usually it's going to be like late game, like your face, your face, your face. You're all gone. Again, the amount of lands we're going to play is absurd. Our mana can be absurd. That being said, early on in the game, it can be like, yeah, let's remove some threats on the board too. Zoanthrope, speaking of a threat, oh my goodness, 0/0 Ravenous, so we can draw a card if X is 5 or more, which it will be most of the time. Flying Ward too, so a little bit of protection there as well. Enters the battlefield, X damage to any target. So first of all, it can be a great removal spell, or again, a finisher against an opponent if we can put enough into that. And then also it comes into play with X counters on it, so it can be a finisher again, just being a giant threat in play. That again can be decently hard to deal with that ward. Exocrine, a 2/2 that has Ravenous again, so it comes into play with X counters. We can also draw a card from it. Enters the battlefield, deals X damage to each player and each other creature. So this can be like a one-sided board wipe in a way. Take out everything but this, clear the path for it, and also say, you know what? Your life totals are probably pretty suspect at this point. Mass Manipulation. You know what? We can actually have our opponent's creatures do all the dirty work for us. Gain control of X target creatures and our planeswalkers. Again, we've got so much mana to work with. Again, our commander gives us that extra land each turn. We've got all these other RAM sources for us. So many ways to generate value. You know what? Our opponents did all the hard work for us. Let's just take their creatures and take them out with their own creatures. Aether Gale, just a very efficient, very effective bounce spell. 5 mana to cast it. 6 things we are bouncing. Absolutely lovely. Evacuation, bounce everything. Instant speed for 5 mana. All creatures go back to their hands. Our commander costs 3 to recast. That's completely fine. We are completely fine with that. And you know what? That's okay. Our opponents probably have a little more working to do to actually get things back into play. And finally, Expansion Explosion. Expansion can copy a small instant sorcery, which is nice. Explosion, though, X damage to any target. Target player draws X cards. Can be a great way at instant speed to, finish something off, take out an opponent, essentially, or just draw a ton of cards. Or, yeah, I mean, I guess if someone's, like, getting milled out, you can finish that off, too. Final tactic, though, tactic number 9, ramp it up very simply, very effectively. Again, we already talked about a lot of great ramp sources in this deck, including our commander. We've got some more to work with, though. Wayfarer's Bauble, of course, pay 2-tap, sacrifice, get a base land to play tapped. Then we've got Rampant Growth, the OG, 2 mana, get a basic into play tapped as well. Edge of Autumn, exact same thing if we got 4 or fewer lands. If not, later in the game, we can cycle it away by sacrificing a land, which can be a great way to replace it. Next up, we've got Cultivate, of course. 1 basic into play tapped, 1 into our hand. And finally, Grow from the Ashes. If we kick it, we get 2 basics into play untapped. If not, just 1, but still, either way, a great card. But now this episode is coming to a close. It's time for me to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know your thoughts on this commander and this deck are. If you are interested in this deck, make sure you check out that deck list link in the description below. Also, while you're down there, make sure you check out my Kickstarter, which will be coming out in the near future. I'm really excited about it. I made my own card game, and I couldn't be happier with it. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are on all this in the comments below. And of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.